Dead Space. I've actually never played this game before, but I remember when it first came out, I really praised it for furthering the evolution of survival horror games, specifically after Capcom and Resident Evil's attempts going more and more action-oriented. I think now, with the remake coming out soon, it's a really good time to see what this whole Dead Space series is all about. Let's take a look. Dead Space was released in 2008 and lets you control Isaac Clarke as he explores the Ishimura, an abandoned spaceship that has been overrun by necromorphs. As you explore the ship, you learn more about the necromorphs and also try to find your girlfriend, Nicole, who is on the ship as well. Your rescue ship gets destroyed and you are tasked with figuring out what happened on the Ishimura while also trying to escape. It is no surprise that Dead Space takes some of its biggest inspirations from 2005's Resident Evil 4. The developers at Visceral Games were hugely inspired by Resident Evil, specifically the fourth entry, so much that it made them want to make their own IP. At the time, Visceral Games made licensed games for EA, such as the PGA Golf series, so it was quite a leap to go from making golf games to making survival horror. Luckily, EA allowed them to create Dead Space. Funny enough, the game's first build was on the original Xbox. I wonder what that version would look like. The third-person perspective, coupled with limited ammo, inventory management, and a puzzling map to explore, fits very well into the established survival horror genre. Where Dead Space goes beyond is in its atmosphere and tone. My absolute favorite part about this game is in its immersion. Notice how this game has no HUD blocking your screen. Gauges like health or ammo are blended very neatly into Isaac's suit or his weapons. Screens you interact with are a part of the map, and the story is all told in real time, much like in the Half-Life series, for example. Videos and audio tracks will play while you can still move around and look at your surroundings. Checking your map or inventory does not pause the game either. The whole feeling that this game is taking place in real time adds to this sense of immersion. I think the choice to make Isaac a silent protagonist really adds to that feeling as well, so you as the player can really imprint yourself onto Isaac and have that further depth of realism. I understand that making Isaac a silent protagonist may have changed in the sequels, so we'll have to address that in those games later. One of my favorite smaller features that you don't really think about with Dead Space is the objective system. Basically, if you press down on the control stick, you'll have a line that shows Isaac where his next objective is. It's really simple in that you don't have to mess around with maps or anything to see where you're supposed to go, and it just adds on to that immersion of your gameplay elements and menus being so well integrated into the actual gameplay. It's really, really subtle, and I just love it for that. As the game progresses, the major threat of the necromorphs is met by an increasing amount of hallucinations. These are some unsettling scenes that Isaac will experience throughout the game, like seeing visions of Nicole or human corpses just doing a bunch of crazy things. The story itself adds to the tension as well by having you interact with two other people who get stranded on the ship with you, Kendra and Hammond. They are constantly arguing or disagreeing over comms, and the lack of camaraderie here during a highly stressful situation makes you as the player stressed as well. The lore behind the necromorphs is well thought out and leads to interesting and complex story moments to keep you engaged. A lot of times you'll find an audio track that will be in an elevator, for example, so as you listen and absorb the story, it hides the fact that the elevator is loading the next level of the game. Really genius stuff to kind of shift your attention as the game progresses. The cherry on top for all of this atmosphere is in its sound design. I say playing with headphones is absolutely mandatory. The music in this game adjusts based on what you're doing, and even in moments of downtime, you can hear either the clanging of the ship or some spooky whispers as you get further and further into the mystery behind the Ishimura. Also, as being set in space, some sections involve being in 0G, which has no sound whatsoever. The scariest part of Dead Space to me was just absorbing the empty void of space, only to be interrupted by a fast and deadly necromorph. Oh, this looks nice. Oh, Jesus! Dead Space is structured in chapters, typically with each chapter sending you to a new section of the ship to repair something that will help you escape. Save points are very generous in this game, as are any sort of checkpoints between should you die. And the death scenes in this game can be brutal. Dead Space is definitely filled with its fair share of alien gore, so be warned there. I was playing on medium difficulty, and I found item drops to be very generous. Isaac's weapon selection brings great options to how you want to approach combat. You'll also find shops where you can buy specific upgrades or new weapons, and the beauty of it is that you won't even find ammo upgrades for a weapon until you buy the weapon. So every time you play the game, you'll have different builds you'll be working towards, thus you'll have the drops that support those builds. It's really great. Enemies won't always spawn in the same spot too, which is awesome, so you can't just play the game and then play it again and know exactly where all the necromorphs are. They are always going to be in different areas, which is great, but also terrifying when one spawns right behind you. The most genius thing about combat is how you approach enemies. You are told very early that the necromorph's weak point is actually in their limbs. Going for headshots will only agitate enemies, and that's not good. I found the most fun in this game using either the line gun, which gives you a much wider spread for your shots, or just using the saw blade gun for any sort of constant carnage to just rip and tear. Besides weapons, you also have a magnetic ability, mostly used for puzzle solving and for grabbing items, and you also have a stasis ability that can be used to freeze enemies in place. This was very useful for either boss fights or some very risky situations. There's a lot of gameplay variety here that will keep things fresh. I typically only played one chapter at a time, but it was hard to put down once I got going. Dead Space has a lot to offer, and even in your downtime, you can just shoot some hoops.
Clarke for three! Bingo! Oh, what a big make by the rookie!
Sadly, Visceral Games no longer exists. After the Dead Space trilogy, EA noticed not great sales and lack of grabbing a wider appeal with the survival horror genre, so they cut the studio, amongst other reasons. Fans have been asking for more Dead Space since, and just recently a remake of the first game was announced. I felt that the PC version I played still holds up very well, so I can't wait to see how modern gaming conventions like better performance and lighting and haptic feedback will add to this immersion. Even if you aren't big on scary games, Dead Space is a well-crafted game that is worth trying today. Its structure is beautiful. This game has such a variety of ways to approach enemies in combat, even in subsequent playthroughs. Enemy design is really well thought out, and they introduce all these new concepts to you in a very free-flowing manner so you can absorb, learn, and move on. I can't comment on how the console versions of Dead Space performs today, like on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, so for now, I would say at least try the PC version, unless you are more patient and stronger than I am, and can wait and play the new remake when it comes out soon. Hopefully it does the series justice, and just maybe, we could get even more new Dead Space adventures in the future. And that's Dead Space. I'm really glad I was able to visit this game after so much time and see that it really did hold up very well. I will be playing the other Dead Space games in future videos, and if you've made it this far, thank you. Consider subscribing and sharing with your friends, and until next time, take care.